In this section, we're going to be looking at the standalone experience in Copilot for Security. The heart of the Copilot standalone experience comes from the Copilot for Security menu. Sometimes you'll hear this called the hamburger icon, but it's the 3-bar icon in the upper left-hand corner of Copilot for Security. If I click that, you'll notice the sections here: my sessions, the prompt library, owner settings, role assignment, etc. Let's walk through these to kind of get an idea or feel for what's going to be here. The first thing we're going to look at is my sessions. My sessions will give you the most recent sessions that are available for you. You can use the filter icon located here to get more refined views of your recent environments. You can see when they were created. You can use the updated option to see when, if any of these have been updated. Those all give you a way to review the sessions that have been active in your current run or current leveraging of Copilot for Security. If we go back up to that hamburger menu, we could go to the prompt library. And the prompt library is where you can find your prompt books. The prompt books are tasks that you've derived prompts from. You'll notice this is broken up into 3 sections. There's my prompt books, which are your own. There are the organizational prompt books from your organization. And then there are the Microsoft prompt books that come from Microsoft. You'll notice as you click on each, you get to see different levels. Here's prompt books that you've created, and you can see, for example, in here, the owner is my user Avery. So that's Avery's prompt book. Woodgrove Bank, you see the owner of these is an organization. So these prompt books would have been created and defined organizationally. So they're defined as the organization. And then also the prompt books that come from Microsoft. All of these are available for you to be able to see the prompt books that we use within our environment. All right. Going back up to our menu, our next option is going to be owner settings. These settings are available to you as a Copilot owner. If you're not a Copilot owner, if you're a Copilot contributor, you won't have access to these menu options. What you can see here are things like resource links, what compute units you have, the ability to help improve Copilot. Some of these settings are derivatives of what you configured in the initial setup. But what I want to look at is down here near the bottom, there are 2 security settings that we want to look at. Who can add and manage their own custom plugins? You can see this is currently set to owners only. So there's actually another dialog box here that's kind of hidden and grayed out. If I change this from owners to contributors and owners, you'll see that now highlights, or that now lights up. And now I can add who can manage custom plugins for everyone in the organization. And once again, I can change those settings as needed. Pay close attention to this toggle switch. Allow Copilot for Security to access data from your M365 services. That might sound kind of ominous, but if you click on the little information icon, it tells you if this is turned off, your organization won't be able to use plugins that access any of the Microsoft 365 services. So for example, if you want to leverage Purview or anything like that, you want to make sure that those settings or this setting is turned on or enabled. If you are going to be creating any kind of customizations, you want to go down here under Files and specify who can upload files. There are ways for us to deploy YAML files or any other kind of code-based structure that we could use to create our own custom plugins for use with Copilot for Security. In order to do that, if we want to upload files for use for reference, we need to make sure that this is enabled, or that functionality is enabled within Copilot for Security. All right, so back at our main menu, speaking of security, role assignment. Who has what roles and who has what capabilities? Just like anything else we use in the Azure environment, we want to use role-based access control to effectively enforce principle of least permissions. We want to make sure only people have the role capabilities that are commensurate with what their needs are within Copilot for Security. We can do this by using the add members function. So if you go to add members, this is where you can begin typing in who you want. You can use the asterisk feature to grab everyone, or if you use the slash function, you can use the GDAP. But otherwise, you could use that to search for users. You could also see who has ownership rights. In this case, the security administrator, the global administrator, and Avery. And then who has contributor. In this case, everyone has contributor. You use these roles to provide that governance. And always think about the defaults are going to come to that everyone can be a contributor. Is that what you want? And if so, do we need to adjust the role assignments to meet our organizational specific needs? All right, going back to our home menu, continuing to go down the list, one of the things that's really neat about Copilot for Security is the ability to adjust our allocation based on actual usage that were occurring in the environment. So if I click on usage monitoring, what I get a chance to do is see how I'm using processing units. How am I using the compute units that I've allocated? I may have 3 units allocated per hour, but if I look at my utilization, I can see what that actually is. And if I hover over any of these bars, you'll see that I get actual usage information in a given time range. So if I realize, well, maybe I have more units allocated than necessary, I can adjust that capacity and apply it there. I can look at this architecture over, say, a given range of time. I can look at this over the last 24 hours, the last 3 days, the last 7 days, or any customizable date range that I want to add. I also get specific status across time frames or time ranges when those things are being used organizationally. This allows me to make really effective decisions about what and how I allocate those compute resources. And that allows us to save money. Going back to our menu, down past the main objects, you'll notice there is a settings link here, right above the logged in user. If I click on settings, this is where I can kind of configure preferences. How do I want light, dark, time contrast? What languages do I use? Time zone settings, who can manage plugins? We talked about some of these settings that we have available to us. Who can upload files? There's a debugging level for our responses if we're doing debugging. If we go into data and privacy, we can see a privacy statement as well as any terms and conditions we want to use. And also the app versions. We can see kind of what versioning we have in our environment. All right. Lastly, we close this up. Down here at the very bottom, you'll notice that currently this is set to Woodgrove Bank. This is my tenancy. It's showing me what tenant I'm using. I can switch between tenants using this tenant switcher. So if I click this drop down, it would show me the available tenants that are here. Now in our example, Woodgrove is the only available tenant, but if I was going to be using other tenancy, I could do that here. And I could switch between those tenants to get a view of how Copilot for Security is being used and the settings associated with it in that given tenant. All right. So let me pop back here. So all of this gives us an overview of what we have in our environment. So on the main page, in the center of this landing page, this is what we call our most recent sessions. You'll see your last session will be the largest tile. You'll also see other recent sessions here. In the bottom, there will be a link to view all sessions. And this is where you can go and view the session history associated with this environment. All right, so if you go back to that main landing page, the landing page shows tiles from some of the Microsoft Security prompt books. You could explore access to prompt books and the prompt book library. There will be other exercises where we'll explore creating and running a prompt book. To the right of where it says get started with these prompt books, you'll notice there are left and right arrows that we could use to navigate through prompt books in the architecture. Each tile shows you a brief description of a prompt book, the number of prompts it has, and it has a run icon associated with that prompt book. So what we could do is we could use this vulnerability assessment prompt book. It's a Microsoft prompt book with 4 prompts. And if I wanted to run this prompt book, I could simply click the run icon. This shows me what's required for this prompt book. In this case, I'd need a CVEID, and then it would tell me what prompts are going to run. And you can see a list of the 4 prompts that run. Remember, Copilot is contextual, so it understands what information you need. If there are any inputs required for a prompt book, a listing of those would be included in the prompt. Note the information about the prompt books and the available options. They are all available to you here within this architecture. All right. Okay. Now, if we go back and we select in the prompt window our prompts, this once again shows you a listing of prompt books and prompts that have run in this architecture. If you select See All Prompt Books, now you can see the prompt books that have run. You can see the ones associated with Avery, the Microsoft prompt books, as well as any associated with our organization. Remember, any of these are always available and are all searchable. You can view any of this by going to the prompt book library and seeing the prompt books that are associated with the organization as a whole. Once again, my prompt books are located here, the Microsoft prompt books are here, as well as the organizational prompt books as well. This gives you an idea of who developed it and where they are located. You can always filter this list around criteria, tags, Sentinel, incident, threat actor, script, CVE, any of those that are available. All right. Good. Now, so we've looked at exploring the prompt book library. We looked at prompts and the prompt architecture. But the main interface is the prompt bar down here at the bottom. I kind of poked around here, but this is where you're going to spend a great deal of your time. So here in the prompt bar, we saw the prompts icon was listed here, but also the sources icon. And this is where you can see the sources that are available within your architecture. So whether you choose, you can see the Microsoft sources and non-Microsoft sources that are accessible to Copilot for Security. Both of them give you an idea of what you're able to use in this standalone experience. Remember, Copilot for Security has sources that it could use to provide its aggregation and analysis around your environment. Whether you're using Microsoft sources or third-party sources, you can take advantage of the ability to toggle those sources on and off as you walk through the services that are available to you within the prompt book architecture. All right, excellent. All right, so between prompts and plugins, it gives you an idea of what the capacity of Copilot for Security is. Now, there are a lot of system capabilities that are associated with specific plugins, and as such will only be listed if that current or corresponding plugin is available. Remember, when we're looking at what's available to us within the dashboard, it's often dependent upon what we're able to see from this, what we have enabled in this sources icon. You can create, as I said, your own. You can upload your own sources to that, or you can enable, for example, here as your firewall, you can enable or disable sources, which changes what's available to you within the source list that you have available. All right, excellent. Now, note that not all plugins are simply toggles. Some plugins will require additional setup. If I go back in here, one more time here, you'll notice there's like a show more little link here. I'll expand that out. And if I scroll down here to the bottom, there's something, for example, like Azure AI Search, Web Application Firewall, External Attack Surface Management. These don't require you just to turn them on in Copilot for Security. They require some additional setup and additional configuration. So if you're going to use those, then you may have to perform some actions outside of Copilot Security in order for these to function. You may have to configure a particular workspace ID or configure a particular data source for each of those. And each one of these plugins will have their own configuration based on the specifics of that. All right? Now, we'll also be able to use files. Files can be uploaded provided we have that configuration associated with us in Copilot Security and we've granted those rights and granted those capabilities. If we've given users the ability to upload files, you'll get that available to you as well. The last and probably the most important feature is help. I know as sometimes we don't like to leverage help. We want to figure out things on our own. But help can serve a wide range of tasks, specifically helping you save time when you're trying to diagnose why things aren't working properly. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the little question mark icon. This is where you're able to grab or access help in your environment. You'll notice help has two elements. There's the help documentation, and then there's help with a little kind of support person icon. If you click on help documentation, you notice it opens up a new browser tab, and it takes you to the Copilot for security documentation. If I go back and click on the little help icon, what it'll do is it'll give me access to self-help. It's a self-help widget that I can gain access to and answer or find solutions to common problems. Usually I can just enter some basic information about the problem and be able to answer that. If you have the minimum role of service support administrator or help desk administrator, you can submit a support case to the Microsoft support team. If you have this role, the headset icon will be displayed here. If you don't see that icon, that just means you don't have that role capability. So in this exercise, we got a chance to explore the Microsoft Copilot for Security standalone experience. We'll look at some of the key landmarks of the Copilot landing page, including owner settings, past sessions, prompts, prompt books, and a help option. Thank you.